Hi, my name is Leah Day, and welcome to this video for the Building Blocks Quilt Along. Today, Josh is going to be stitching out straight lines in one of our house blocks. So let's get started. Let's actually take a look at the block real quick, because I wanted to show kind of some of the ways that Josh has altered this design a little bit. So Josh, tell me kind of your design decisions here, what you've decided to do here.
Well, I took a good long look at the block, and I saw a lot of lines. And I thought, since these lines are already pre-printed, it's a little unnecessary to go over all of them. So right here on the main house area, I did every other line. And down here with the, the grass, I did every 2 lines. I skipped every 2 lines.
Okay.
And when I got to the roof, I looked at it and again thought, wow, that's a lot of lines. But I wanted to challenge myself and go off the grid and do it. How would I say it when I'm not traveling on a line? I've done it freehand.
This is freehand quilting without marks. So in this situation, when you quilt on marked lines, it's just quilting on a marked line. When you quilt without the marked lines, just kind of doing it yourself, kind of in this case, you're kind of looking at this edge and kind of echoing these lines to keep that diagonal. You're freehand quilting that because you don't have marked lines, and this is your own kind of signature on the surface of the block.
And I'm very proud of this part too.
Excellent.
I think I did an excellent job.
So I just want to emphasize, this is just a really good way of changing up this block and making it your own. And now Josh is out here on the perimeter and just knocking out these lines in the most logical fashion. And this honestly saved a lot of time too. If you're looking at this block and finding it really time consuming, this is a way of saving time as well. So let's see you knock out the rest of these lines and get any tips you have on free motion whenever you're finishing this up.
One thing with this one, there is a huge amount of travel stitching.
I did cover and share some tips on that in my video, but yes, there is definitely some travel stitching. And just remember, slow down. Maybe find a slower speed within your machine when you're operating your foot pedal, and slow down slightly as you travel stitch, and that's going to make it a lot easier. So now are you gonna swing around now and do that chimney?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm going to leave the interior lines of the chimney as is. I'm not going to stitch them.
Okay.
And then I'm going to slow down my travel stitching.
Yeah. You might want to slow down the speed of your machine a bit. And now you're going to hit that side?
Yes.
Okay. That's looking great. I know that it's easy to kind of look at your block and go, oh, I'm not making any progress, or this is, I've got this big mistake or something here. You have to look at it as a continual changing and building process. And you see the different way that Josh is holding his block. You can go back to block number 1 and see the straight lines he was stitching in that block, and he was holding the block completely differently. And that's just experience, practice, having so many different things to stitch out. All of that really made a big difference. Now, I'd wait right here at this point. If you stitch in, and this is one of those things that's a decision kind of thing.
I'll get caught, yeah.
Yeah, so at this point you can stitch in and that's fine. Just understand this is not a problem, this is not a mistake. You can stitch in, and you'd have to travel stitch over, and then you hit this line, and then you could knock out these lines, and that would work just fine. Let me back up the camera so everybody can see. So kind of coming in and over, and you'd have to just travel stitch across the top of the house again and hit these lines. Or you can stitch this line in and knock out these lines that way and just kind of leave that one and come back to it at the end. It's totally up to you. I think since you're already down there, you're already in that spot, go on ahead and hit it and just travel stitch carefully across the top of the house. And it's one of those things, sometimes just a little extra focus and concentration on what order you're stitching in, just kind of stop and plan and stop and plan after every couple of lines. It really will help kind of prevent those situations from happening. And again, it wasn't a mistake. It's certainly not a mistake. It's just a situation where you could have avoided some travel stitching with a little bit more planning. But this is looking terrific. I think your ability to stitch on a straight line is definitely improved since our first blocks.
Now when I get to the corner here, you can see I'm not going all the way in because it's going to get so dense.
That's a very good point. Yeah, if you stitch over the same area too many times, it's really easy to break thread in that area. It's really easy for it to just get basically too heavy, too many threads all lining up together. And this is another area where you could kind of make up your own design and freehand quilt. If you don't like this design, or you don't like the way it's looking, or you just want to try something different, completely unique in your own, you could do wiggly lines in this situation. You know, kind of a wiggly line running in between all of those straight lines would look really interesting. It's fun to be creative and just see what you can add or change. Kind of make your own elements within each house block. Because that corner is right up there close to the edge, is that challenging?
Yes, very much so, yes.
It's challenging to kind of keep it all straight as you're stitching back and forward.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting to see, though, how your hand movements have changed, and you have gotten a lot more control over that. And even though it feels still a little out of control, you are getting better. Looks like just 2 more lines now.
Mm-hmm. And it actually meant I ditched the perimeter for the most part, but with all the travel stitching, I obviously forgot that side.
That's okay. You can always hit it, go back around again, or it really doesn't have to be stitched.
Because the binding's going to cover it up.
Exactly. You don't have to stitch it.
There we go. Okay.
So that's it for stitching straight lines in a house block. And, you know, going through this, I really want to emphasize, Josh didn't make any mistakes in this block. He didn't stitch this wrong or anything. When I pointed that out, that he could have avoided some travel stitching, really it was just an indication of, you know, stopping, taking your hands off the block and just looking at it, and, you know, running your finger over the lines that are marked, and kind of planning out, okay, well, how do I get through this with the least amount of travel stitching? I've had a lot of requests through the entire year to have more information on this, and simple fact is there's no right or wrong way to stitch any of these blocks, and there's no single way to stitch it with the least amount of travel stitching. So it's one of those situations that this is unique to the quilter. However, it's good to know, you know, in that situation I was able to see that just simply because I was stopping and looking at the block while Josh was kind of busy quilting it. So overall, how do you feel about it?
Well, I remember looking at this block and the pile of spoonflower blocks, and this one really intrigued me because it's a lot of straight lines, and I like straight lines. But there are too many straight lines, and it can get overwhelming, and easily this block would have taken me probably up to an hour, if not more, if I'd stitched every single line, and I don't even want to think about all the travel stitching I would have had to have done. Leah had some advice. Just take a moment and look at the block and plan it out, and maybe split it into quadrants or maybe even eighths.
Just break it up.
Yeah.
Break it up so that you know, especially if it's overwhelming, you know, stitch the house section first, then stitch the roof section next, you know, and maybe even take breaks between them if it's just too many lines for you, or figure out ways like Josh has of just not stitching all of the lines. There were some stitch issues in this block that you're really bothered by. Yes,
there were 3 areas that I felt ruined the entire block, and these were really compounded for me because I was really happy with the freehanding I was doing. And I'm looking at it now.
And you want to rip
like
it.
This.
You know,
yeah, I don't even like look. I think I'm not going to like looking at this block and finished quilt, but Leah said I probably won't even notice it.
Probably not. Right now, when you're on your machine, you're about 12 inches, your face is 12 inches away from this block. You are seeing any issue so close, closer than you will ever see it whenever you're cuddling up with a quilt. You're hyper aware of your mistakes. That's not really the best situation to be judging yourself. You know, of course, that's the easy time to be judging yourselves because it's so front and center. But seriously, step away from it You know, wait until these blocks are together. Wait until they're on the wall or connected together in their quilt on your couch. You're going to come up on it and it's from 6 feet away, 4 feet away, it's going to look like a beautiful quilt. And you're not going to see those issues. I know it's hard. I certainly do. And I certainly understand that feeling, that kind of cringe feeling of, oh, I just stitched a terrible mistake into my quilt. But leave it. Seriously, leave it. There's no point in ripping it out, because more than likely you rip it out, you take that time, you're going to get more frustrated. You're going to try and stitch it again perfectly, and then you'll make the mistake again. I know I've done that. So just leave it, and I promise in the finished quilt it's still going to be beautiful. So my name is Leah Day, and this has been a video for the Building Blocks Quilt Along. You can join us stitching out all of these blocks by picking up a copy of the Building Blocks quilt pattern. This pattern has 42 blocks. You'll learn how to piece and free motion quilt, and all of these awesome videos for you to learn how to do it step by step. Find the pattern at leahday.com. You can also pick up Spoonflower cheater cloth that Josh is using. It's already pre-printed, ready to go, so you don't have to piece your blocks. That's at spoonflower.com. Until next time, let's go quilt.